All right, so today we're diving into the world of jellyfish. You know those creatures that are just
Yeah, very
mesmerizing and
important.
always seem to be up to something interesting?
Mm.
And judging by the stack of research that you sent us, you're ready to go way beyond the basic facts.
For sure.
I mean, you've got articles on their biology, excerpts on jellyfish in space, even some deep dives into their potential in medicine.
It seems like you're as captivated by these creatures as we are. And what I find particularly intriguing is just how much complexity lies beneath their seemingly simple exterior.
Yeah.
We often picture them as just gelatinous blobs, but they're just so much more than that.
Exactly. I mean, they've been around for over 500 million years. Talk about an ancient lineage.
It's incredible.
And you mentioned giant jellyfish. Some sources describe them as being like over 2 meters wide.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to hear more about those encounters and how researchers even study creatures that elusive.
Absolutely, those giants are truly a sight to behold. But even the smaller species are incredibly diverse. Some, like the bioluminescent varieties, have this almost otherworldly glow. Others have adapted to freshwater environments, and they play a critical role in the ecosystem, though admittedly we often hear about them most during those infamous jellyfish swarms.
Right. Those swarms can definitely make headlines. But speaking of their role in the ecosystem,
Yeah.
how do they even function on a basic level? I was reading about their breathing, or lack thereof, I guess. No lungs, no gills. How do they get oxygen underwater?
That's a great question, and it really highlights their remarkable efficiency. They breathe through diffusion. Their body structure is so simple, with an outer layer just 2 cells thick, that oxygen from the water can just pass directly into their cells.
So their entire body is essentially one big respiratory surface. I also read that their pulsating motion plays a role in this.
Precisely, that pulsation is constantly bringing fresh oxygenated water into contact with their tissues, maximizing that diffusion process. It's amazing how nature has optimized them for survival with such a streamlined system.
It really is. But if their anatomy is that simple, how do they sense their surroundings? Do they even have what we'd recognize as senses?
They do, and it's surprisingly sophisticated. They may not have complex brains, but they have ocelli, which are simple eyes that detect light and dark.
Okay.
This helps them navigate, knowing whether they're heading towards the surface or deeper water.
So they're not just drifting aimlessly. What about other senses?
They also have staticists, acting like internal compasses to help them maintain balance. But their most fascinating sensory tools are their tentacles. And not just for the reason we usually think of.
Right, the stinging. We all know about that.
Yeah,
But the research you sent mentions they're much more than just weapons.
exactly. Those tentacles are covered in sensory cells that allow them to detect touch chemicals, even changes in water temperature and pressure.
Wow.
Think of it as a combination of hands, nose, and taste buds all rolled into one butt.
It's like their tentacles are their primary way of experiencing the world around them. But let's talk about those stings for a moment. We know they can be incredibly painful, even dangerous in some cases. What makes jellyfish venom so potent?
It's not just one thing, it's a complex cocktail of toxins. You've got neurotoxins, which disrupt nerve signals, proteases that break down proteins, and a whole array of other compounds that can cause pain, inflammation, even allergic reactions in humans. It's really a multifaceted attack, designed to quickly immobilize prey.
And I imagine the specific composition of that cocktail varies between species.
Absolutely. Some species are infamous for their particularly potent venom. The box jellyfish, for example, is considered one of the deadliest creatures on Earth. Its sting can cause excruciating pain and can even be fatal.
That's terrifying. There was also some information on the Portuguese man-o'-war. Is that one as dangerous?
That one's a bit of a trickster. It's not actually true jellyfish, but a colony of organisms.
No.
However, its sting can still be incredibly painful, causing welts, muscle cramps, and even fever.
So definitely not something you want to encounter in the water. But here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
There's a growing field of research exploring the potential medical applications of jellyfish venom.
That's right. What might seem like a purely defensive weapon could actually hold the key to some incredible breakthroughs. And that's what we'll be diving into after. We'll just dive right in.
Okay, sounds good to me. Okay, so we've talked about the power of jellyfish venom, but now we're shifting gears to something completely different.
Okay?
The idea of an immortal jellyfish, is that really a thing?
It's a captivating concept, isn't it? The idea of a creature that can seemingly defy death. But it's important to understand that it's not immortality in the traditional sense.
So what's the real story here? What makes this particular jellyfish so unique?
It all boils down to this remarkable ability called transdifferentiation. Most jellyfish have a typical life cycle, going from a polyp stage to an adult medusa stage, and their lifespan can vary, from a few months to a couple of years, depending on the species.
Right, we touched on that earlier.
But the Turritopsis dohrnii, this so-called immortal jellyfish, has a fascinating trick up its sleeve. When faced with stress injury or even old age, it can essentially revert back to its earliest life stage, becoming a polyp again.
So instead of dying, it transforms back into a polyp. That's incredible.
It is pretty amazing.
But wouldn't it be genetically identical to the original polyp? How does it benefit from this reversion?
That's one of the mysteries researchers are still trying to unravel. Does it revert to a genetically identical polyp, or are there subtle changes each time? And what are the evolutionary advantages of this process? There's still so much to learn. But we do know that it essentially reabsorbs its tentacles, becomes a tiny blob known as a planular larva, and attaches itself to a surface. From there, it can develop into a new polyp colony, effectively restarting its life cycle.
So it's not true immortality, but rather a remarkable cycle of renewal. It's almost like a biological fountain of youth. And speaking of pushing the boundaries of life, we can't forget that jellyfish have even ventured into space.
Ah, yes. The Jellyfish in Space experiment. It was a pioneering study. That helped us understand how life adapts to extreme environments, particularly the effects of microgravity.
Okay, so why send jellyfish into space? What were researchers hoping to learn?
Well, remember those statuses we discussed earlier? They're crucial for a jellyfish's balance and orientation, and they're highly sensitive to gravity. Sending them into a microgravity environment, where gravity is almost non-existent, allowed scientists to observe how these creatures would develop and behave.
So it was all about understanding how the absence of gravity might affect their basic biological processes.
Exactly.
Did they choose a specific species for this experiment?
They did. They set up moon jellies. And it turned out that their polyp stage was particularly affected. Typically, moon jelly polyps move in a predictable circular motion. But in space, their movement became erratic and uncoordinated. It was a clear demonstration of gravity's influence on their development.
That's fascinating. It's like their internal compass got thrown off.
Yeah.
What about the adult jellyfish? How did they handle being weightless?
Adult jellyfish rely on gravity to regulate their pulsing motion, the way they propel themselves through the water. In microgravity, they essentially had to relearn how to swim, adjusting their muscle use to adapt to this strange new environment.
It makes you wonder if they experienced any sort of disorientation, like a constant feeling of falling. But it sounds like the experiment revealed some valuable insights. Did it go beyond just understanding jellyfish?
Absolutely. It provided crucial data on how space travel might affect any organism, including humans. Think about astronauts spending months or even years in space, studying the impact of microgravity on muscle function, nerve signaling, even cellular development. In jellyfish, help scientists understand those same processes in more complex organisms.
It's like these seemingly simple creatures became these incredible miniature astronauts, helping us unlock the secrets of space travel. And we're seeing a similar theme with the medical research on their venom. Both areas highlight their unexpected complexity.
That's a great point. Their resilience and adaptation strategies are incredibly valuable, especially as we face the growing challenges of climate change and threats to our oceans. These ancient creatures might hold the key to understanding not just our future in space, but also the future of our own planet.
This is blowing my mind. We started with these gelatinous blobs, and now we're talking about space exploration, climate change, and the potential for life-saving medical breakthroughs. What else is there to uncover about these incredible creatures? Okay, I'm ready for more. We've already covered so much ground, but you sent us some really fascinating research on the medical applications of jellyfish venom. It's one thing to say it has potential, but I'd love to hear about some specific examples of how scientists are putting this venom to work.
That's a great question. It's easy to focus on the dangers of the venom, but there's a whole other side of the story. Take wound healing, for instance.
Okay.
Some peptides found in jellyfish venom can stimulate cell growth and reduce inflammation.
So instead of causing pain and tissue damage, these compounds could actually promote healing.
That's the idea. Researchers are looking at this for treating burns, chronic wounds, even exploring potential applications in cosmetics, for skin regeneration.
Wow.
It's about harnessing the power of these compounds for good.
That's amazing. There were also some sources that mentioned potential applications for neurological disorders. I was a little confused by that. How could venom that disrupts nerve function actually help with conditions like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's?
It's counterintuitive, isn't it? But remember, jellyfish venom is a complex mixture of compounds. And scientists are able to isolate specific components and study their effects.
Right.
For example, some neurotoxins in very controlled doses
Yeah.
can actually help regulate certain nerve pathways.
So it's about finding the right balance, the therapeutic window, where these compounds can have a positive impact.
Exactly.
What are some of the specific mechanisms they're looking at?
Well, in Parkinson's disease, there's a loss of dopamine-producing neurons. Some researchers are investigating whether certain compounds in jellyfish venom could potentially protect those neurons or even stimulate their regeneration. It's still early-stage research, but the possibilities are intriguing.
And what about Alzheimer's? I know that's a very complex disease, but were there any promising findings related to jellyfish venom?
With Alzheimer's, one of the hallmarks is the buildup of amyloid plaques in the brain. Some studies have shown that certain peptides found in jellyfish venom can actually break down those plaques. Again, this is very preliminary research, but it's an exciting avenue to explore.
It's fascinating to think that something so potent, something we instinctively associate with danger, could hold the key to treating some of our most challenging medical conditions. It makes me think about the space research. In both cases, we're learning so much from these seemingly simple creatures.
I agree. It highlights the importance of curiosity and open-mindedness in scientific research. We never know where the next breakthrough might come from.
This deep dive has been truly mind-expanding. We've covered their ancient lineage, their unique adaptations, their role in the ecosystem, their surprising adventures in space, and now their potential to revolutionize medicine. I have to say, I'll never look at a jellyfish the same way again.
I think that's the beauty of it. They're a constant reminder that there's still so much we don't know about our world. And who knows what other secrets these ancient creatures might be holding. Maybe the key to understanding consciousness or even time travel.
Well, on that note, I think we'll leave our listeners with that thought. If the immortal jellyfish can seemingly defy death, what other mysteries might they hold? It's definitely something to ponder the next time you see one of these mesmerizing creatures pulsing through the water. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the incredible world of jellyfish.